When it comes to iconic video game characters, who are the first ones to pop into your mind? Mario, obviously. Sonic too. I'm sure for a lot of people, Mega Man would rank fairly high up on that list as well, and for good reason. But unlike Mario and Sonic, who get new entries in their franchises every couple years or so, fans of the Blue Bomber are rarely as lucky. I mean, the last mainline Mega Man game came out, like 8 years ago? So with the release of Mega Man 11 earlier this month, was it worth the wait? In short, yeah, I guess it was. For the most part, Mega Man 11 is about what you'd expect from any Mega Man game. Dr. Wily is back, and he's turned another 8 Robot Masters against the world to further his nefarious plans, this time being inspired by an invention from his early days, when he was more genius and less mad. Imbuing the turned Robot Masters with the Double Gear, a device that enhances a robot's speed or strength depending on its use, Wily has never been more dangerous, and Mega Man must upgrade and adapt to keep up. In terms of plot, this is classic Mega Man, though with a little more context sprinkled in for good measure. I can't remember the last time a Mega Man game put this much focus on plot, and while the game is still very much weighted in favour of its gameplay rather than its story, I feel like this is one of the stronger Mega Man plots to date. May not be saying much, but there it is. The flashbacks showing the relationship between Wily and Light are interesting, and while at the end of the day we're here to fight robots and do some platforming, the story was surprisingly engaging. Also surprising is the quality of the voice acting. Maybe I'm a little bit biased because when I think of Mega Man and voice acting, I think of the nightmare that was Mega Man 8, but everyone in Mega Man 11 sounds pretty much how you'd expect them to sound, and when they don't, it's generally a pleasant surprise. For instance, Acid Man and Bounce Man sound like a mad scientist and a cute cartoon character respectively, as you might expect. Impact Man, on the other hand, is a construction robot who sounds like an over-the-top gallant knight, and it's super entertaining. The game's strong voice acting is bolstered by a fantastic soundtrack, which is easily on par with earlier entries in the franchise. There's nothing quite as memorable as the Mega Man 2 title track, but more often than not I found myself nodding along to the upbeat tunes. It definitely sounds like a Mega Man game should. And to that point, it also looks exactly like a modern day Mega Man game should. While the most modern entries in the series opted to return to the game's original 8-bit art style, Mega Man 11 goes full 3D for its visuals, and I think it works out tremendously. Everything looks clean and colourful, with particle effects on the various bosses standing out in particular, because the rest of the game looks kinda simple, but it works for it. So it looks and sounds like a Mega Man game, albeit modernised, but how does Mega Man 11 play? Well, the short answer is, like a Mega Man game. The entire crux of any good Mega Man game is running, jumping and shooting your way through various themed levels and taking on that stage's boss, and that's not only still here, it may be about as polished as it's ever been. Despite the shift to 3D, Mega Man still has a very obvious square hitbox, so avoiding attacks and platforming effectively is still super smooth, and the basic shooting mechanics are about as responsive as they can be. On top of Mega Man's usual shooting mechanics, Mega Man 11 also allows you to stun blocking enemies with a charge shot, an idea that I can't recall seeing in any previous entries in the series. It's a small thing, but it adds another wrinkle to 11's excellent reproduction of the series' classic gameplay, and that's not unwelcome. The more significant addition to Mega Man 11's gameplay is the introduction of the Double Gear system, a device that, as I mentioned earlier, allows robots to increase their speed or their power at will. Since the Robot Masters are equipped with these devices, it only makes sense that Mega Man would also get an upgrade, and I kind of love the twist that it brings to what would otherwise be just another Mega Man game. While just another Mega Man game wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, it is refreshing to finally see a game actually add a significant new mechanic to the 30-year-old formula that the Blue Bomber has always used. In short, the Double Gear lets you either slow down time, allowing you to dodge attacks and platform around hazards more effectively, or increase your power, by modifying attacks to inflict more damage when used with the special weapons or your charge shot. In a tight spot you can even activate both at the same time, though this leaves Mega Man in a weakened state, so I never really got much use out of it. The Double Gear has a cooldown timer, so you aren't able to abuse it too much, but smart use can turn tough boss fights or platforming sequences into a breeze. Mega Man purists may scoff, but I say, fuck 'em. It's about time the Blue Bomber had some new toys to play with. Speaking of toys, you're able to upgrade Mega Man in a similar fashion to Mega Man 7 through 10, and your options range from basic mechanical upgrades such as non-slip boots and the auto-charging Mega Buster, to Double Gear specific upgrades. And as always, you get your hands on some sweet special weapons for every boss you defeat. Mega Man 11 features a decent variety of weapons, allowing you to approach a number of challenges in different ways, while also serving as special weaknesses for certain Robot Masters. If this isn't your first Mega Man, then none of this will surprise you. What might surprise you is that, as a whole, the game isn't super difficult. Between liberal use of the Double Gear system and upgrading the crap out of the Blue Bomber, I never found any level particularly frustrating apart from like one boss fight. That's not to say that the game isn't challenging, it's just that I definitely pulled less hair out playing this than earlier games in the series, that's for sure. Trying to work out a boss fight's pattern or nailing certain platforming sequences can be nail-biting at times, but honestly, using the speed gear really softens the blow. Not a bad thing, but definitely something to note. For the most part, I've found Mega Man 11 to be a fantastic modern entry to a classic franchise, but that isn't to say that there aren't some shortcomings. For one, vertical platforming can be a little bit weird, as I found Mega Man's head would bounce off of higher platforms, even if it looked as though he wasn't touching it. Secondly, the inclusion of live systems and game overs is weird to see in this day and age. I'm not really sure it adds anything here, beyond it being a feature of every other game before this one. It's not a huge deal, it's definitely not a deal breaker, but it is something I thought video games were past at this point. Finally, and most frustratingly, is the lack of an autosave feature. This might just be me, but when I'm done playing for a while, and especially if I'm stepping away from a game because I've reached the spot that I can't quite beat yet, the last thing on my mind is manually saving a game. I made it to Wily's Castle in about one sitting and came back to find that I still had 7 Robot Masters left to fight. Honestly, what modern video game doesn't autosave by default? Despite my gripes, I really did enjoy the game. Mega Man 11 delivers a classic platforming experience with some modern twists. It doesn't feel like a celebration of the series, a la Sonic Generations, instead feeling like a natural progression of the mainline series. Perhaps the biggest progression that the series has seen in years thanks to the unique wrinkle of the Double Gear system, though it is a shame that some of its classic roots still trip it up in places. Mega Man 11 is good. While I wouldn't call it the best Mega Man game, I'd definitely say it's one of my favorites now. I really do appreciate the addition of the Double Gear because I think we have enough core Mega Man games that are satisfied with simply repeating the classic formula, and the audio and visuals still scream Mega Man to me despite the more modern approach. If you like Mega Man, I'm almost certain you'll enjoy Mega Man 11, and if you've never touched one before, the game's new mechanical additions probably make it one of the most approachable entries in the series' 30-year history. Definitely check this one out.